We're always looking for value at running back on draft day. And some players look like great values, and then there's some players who are so low, it's criminal. These guys are insanely underrated, and you've got to take advantage.
Now, if you're thinking, how can you be drafting? Well, then you need to check out Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has best ball drafts going full swing right now, all the way up until the season. They have drafts ranging from $4 to $500 with prize pools ranging from $100,000 to $15 million. That's right, $15 million in their flagship Best Ball Mania 5. If you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, this is the time to do it. Just make sure when you sign up, you use our promo code ENDGAME and take advantage of this special offer. They're going to give you a special pick plus up to $250 in bonus cash. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com, sign up using promo code ENDGAME, start drafting right now, and take advantage of this special offer.
Let's start with a couple of running backs who could be workhorses, yet they're not being treated that way.
Yeah, look, last year, Ramondre Stevenson was probably a little bit overrated. I probably overrated him last year. But this year, he is absolutely insanely underrated, going outside the top 80 players. Why? Just because he was bad last year? And look, he wasn't terrible. He had a slow start to the season, but he was starting to pick it up, and then, of course, he got hurt. But when you look at his usage last year, he had a 60% opportunity share. That means he got 60% of the backfield opportunities in this offense. And he also averaged 4.3 targets per game. Those are elite numbers by today's NFL standards. And what have the Patriots done at running back? I mean, almost nothing. Antonio Gibson, that's the guy who's going to take touches away from Ramondre Stevenson. Now, maybe Stevenson isn't the guy we saw 2 years ago where he was elite for fantasy. Maybe he's just an okay running back. But even if he is just an okay running back this year with that kind of opportunity, he's going to be a screaming, insanely good value where you're drafting him. And no, I don't think the Patriots are going to have some elite offense this year, but it's not going to be worse than last year because we're probably going to see Jacoby Brissett start the season. And no, he's not a great QB, but he's serviceable. We've seen him in stretches, have some good offenses either with the Browns or with the Commanders last year. And then they may switch to the rookie. And either way, whether it's Brissett or the rookie, Ramondre Stevenson is still going to get a ton of dump-offs. He's going to get a ton of receptions. He's going to be the workhorse running back in this offense. He gives you everything you want in a workhorse running back other than, the great offense and the elite talent, but that's why he's going so late. But for a guy you get outside the top 80 players who could legitimately be top 10 in touches, could be top 10, top 15 in receptions this year, that is absolutely crazy to me. So Ramondre Stevenson, yeah, he burned us last year. He was a bit overrated, but this year, insanely underrated.
I feel like every time we get to this range, we talk Ramondre, we're also going to talk about Zamir White because these are two running backs that are being drafted right next to each other, at least on Underdog. Their ADP is right next to each other. And I think they're both going to be workhorse backs. Look, Zamir White came out as a winner from the NFL draft because the Raiders didn't even take a running back till the very end as just kind of an afterthought for depth. Not too worried about Dylan Lobb right now. And free agency, I think it's almost even better that they got Alexander Mattison, a guy who lost his job after having every golden opportunity in Minnesota last year. And he doesn't worry me at all either. So Zamir White, look, he also proved that he can be the bell cow because at the end of last year, when Jacobs was hurt, 4 starts, he averaged 21 carries per game. They treated him like that. Why wouldn't they treat him that way this year? We know with a defensive-minded head coach who's now the full-time head coach, Antonio Pierce, he wants a tough team, a physical team. He wants to run the ball. And they kind of need to run the ball because there's still an issue of not really having a franchise quarterback. Let's just face it. Going to get a ton of touches. So the one thing I'll say is he's not nearly as good a pass catcher as Ramondre Stevenson. But I do like the fact that he got some receptions toward the end of last year when he was on the field those 4 starts. At least he got 9 total receptions, had one game with 5 alone. He will get some receptions, all right? It's not like he's going to draw a blank in that category. But the thing is, he also is on a slightly better offense than New England, and I feel like he's going to be, for sure, the goal line back there. Touchdown upside is always a plus. So this is somebody who is going to get a ton of opportunities. I've always liked the talent here with Zeus, and I just don't understand how a guy who's in such a great situation for fantasy is being drafted so late. Now let's get to some rookies. You'd think these guys would get hyped up, but for some reason, I feel like they're still screaming values.
I agree, and I'm going to start with Jonathan Brooks. And I feel like the reason he's not getting hyped up is because Carolina Panthers. They were such a terrible offense last year. I totally get that. Not to mention he's a rookie. He's coming off ACL. Chuba Hubbard is there. Miles Sanders, I guess, is still there for now. Would not surprise me if he gets traded or maybe even cut. Although I don't know if they can cut him with that contract, to be honest. But regardless, it doesn't matter to me. I think Jonathan Brooks eventually takes over this backfield. We saw last year Miles Sanders wasn't it. Chuba Hubbard basically outplayed him and won that job. And they've brought in Dave Canales from the Bucs. I've talked about this many times this offseason, but if you missed it, Dave Canales basically saved Baker Mayfield's career. In fact, saying he basically did it is disrespectful to Dave Canales. He absolutely saved Baker Mayfield's career. Got this guy a contract extension. I think he can at least get Bryce Young to be good enough this year. Remember, this guy was a number 1 pick. Even if you thought, hey, CJ Stroud should have been the number 1 pick, okay, he would have been the number 2 pick. We're talking about a very good QB prospect. I think Dave Canales can get more out of him. I think the offense will be better. Will it be elite? Probably not, but it will be better. And I think once Jonathan Brooks gets fully healthy from the ACL, gets used to this Panthers offense, and gets the trust of this coaching staff, he will take over this backfield. And down the stretch and in the fantasy playoffs, the part that matters most, I truly believe Jonathan Brooks will be a league winner for teams that are patient and are willing to hold on to him, or maybe teams that pick him up off the waiver wire after the impatient teams have drafted him. But you're smart, you're watching us, so you know you're going to draft him, you're going to stash him, and you're going to reap the rewards later on in your fantasy season.
I'm starting to worry that I might be getting a little too high on Marshawn Lloyd, but then I see how late his ADP is, and I think I'm going to have to keep talking him up until everybody realizes this isn't somebody who's going to sit there and bide his time and watch Josh Jacobs carrying the ball. This is going to be a true committee, a 1A, 1B situation. And again, with Jacobs getting a lot of touches under his belt the last couple of years and having his share of injuries, this is such a high-end backup running back you're going to want a piece of. Now, here's the thing. I liked Lloyd anyways, like no matter where he landed, unless it was just a really terrible situation, but I was going to be high on him and his potential. And I think this is a great situation. I've already talked about why I think Josh Jacobs is being drafted too high, and for the exact same reasons, I think Lloyd is being drafted too low. And let's not even pretend A.J. Dillon has anything to do with this. Sure, he's still there in Green Bay. This is depth. Every team needs more than just 1 or 2 running backs, right? A.J. Dillon had a terrible season last year, which is why they drafted Lloyd and signed Josh Jacobs. Dillon averaged 3.4 yards per carry, and he's definitely not a threat to cut into receiving work. He averages less than 1.5 receptions per game. So Marshawn Lloyd has a great opportunity here. Remember, this is a very talented runner, a speed scorer in the 93rd percentile. We're not just talking straight away 40 time, whatever. It's a guy who, for his size, has great speed, has great burst. He can be a really good receiver out of the backfield. Didn't do it a lot last year, but that's because at USC, they had a quarterback there by the name of Caleb Williams. They didn't really have to check it down too often. But look, Lloyd could be a do-it-all back. I feel like he's going to be more valuable than people think, and the potential there, if Jacobs goes down, is tremendous. All right, back to the veterans. Maybe some sneaky picks, some running backs that have kind of been forgotten.
Yeah, I just keep seeing these workhorse running backs going so late in drafts, like Javonte Williams going outside the top 100 picks right now. I get it. Javonte Williams has not lived up to our expectations. Obviously, rookie year had to split time with Melvin Gordon. Year 2, just when it looked like he was finally going to pull away, tore his ACL, unfortunately. Of course, last year, struggled for most of the year, coming back from ACL, though. But now we're entering year 2 removed from ACL. This is the year where we see running backs bounce back, not only to be 100% of what they were, but sometimes even better than what they were. And I think that's what we're going to see with Javonte Williams, because we have yet to see the best of Javonte Williams. And even last year, when he's coming back from ACL, kind of struggling, and they slow played him, he still had a 58% opportunity share and averaged almost 4 targets per game in this offense. And now they're adding in a rookie QB, Bo Nix, who probably not going to lean on him and ask him to do a whole lot in this offense, especially not early on. They're going to lean on the running game. They're not going to ask Bo Nix to do too much. Javonte Williams is a good pass-catching back. He's a good running back when healthy. Remember, he was a good prospect. He was one of the best runners as a rookie in terms of evaded tackles and broken tackles. He can still do that. He's still young. He'll now be fully healthy. And I feel like he's going to be a workhorse running back in this Broncos offense. And no, again, kind of like Ramondre, kind of like Jonathan Brooks, this isn't going to be one of the league's best offenses. He's probably not going to score 21 touchdowns like Raheem Mostert did last year, but he's still going to get enough opportunities to score enough touchdowns. And again, outside the top 100, if he just gives you high-end RB2 numbers, even solid RB2 numbers, that's going to be an absolute steal. So I think Javonte Williams also insanely underrated.
Well, he may not be in a great offense, but I'm starting to come around on Devin Singletary being a great value because let's face it, he is clearly the RB1 for the Giants, and he's going to get the lion's share of opportunities, maybe all of them, who knows, because the depth chart there for the Giants, specifically at running back, isn't really that impressive, let's be honest. Look, I know that there's always some potential for a guy to emerge. Last year was kind of intrigued by Eric Gray. This year, the trendy sleeper is Tyrone Tracy, one of these converted running backs who has barely played the position. Are we going to fall into that trap again? Look, Eric Gray last year averaged 2.8 yards per carry. He was just bad, right? I was wrong about him. And this year, maybe we're all going to be wrong about Tracy. I think Singletary just winds up being the guy who is that unexciting veteran player who lands on a mediocre to possibly bad team and just winds up getting a ton of touches and just through sheer volume surprises us all. And he's like a fantasy RB2 at the end of the year. And yet you can draft him as like your third or fourth running back. So I get that it's not exciting to get a guy like Devin Singletary. Let's face it, he's actually been pretty good at every stop. 4.6 yards per carry in his career. He's a pretty good receiver. And I don't like having a piece of this Giants offense if I don't have to. I mean, I get that this offensive line is still bad, but it's not like Houston Texans had a great offensive line last year. They really didn't, kind of middle of the road. And he had some very good games. It was very valuable in fantasy for a while. And if anything, I'm kind of encouraged by the fact that I think Singletary winds up catching more passes than ever before because, let's face it, with a guy like Daniel Jones at quarterback, he might be dumping it off a lot just like he used to do to Saquon Barkley. So Singletary, through sheer volume, I think winds up being far more valuable than his draft slot. All right, let's keep going. I think we got a couple more running backs who are just great values.
Yeah, I'm really starting to come around on Jerome Ford as a great value. I mean, he's going, I think, outside like the top 130 picks, which means in a lot of drafts, he's one of your last picks or not being drafted at all. But I really think when we get into training camp and into August and people realize Nick Chubb isn't coming back anytime soon, and basically it's Jerome Ford, Deontay Foreman, and Pierre Strong, we're going to see his ADP shoot up because Jerome Ford was actually pretty good last year, despite having to get vultured over and over again by Kareem Hunt at the 1 yard line. It was so tilting. Kareem Hunt doing nothing all game, just looking terrible, and then getting the 1 yard goal line. But even despite that, Jerome Ford still somehow scored 9 touchdowns last year. He's very good in the passing game. He's a great pass catching running back, but I also think he's a talented enough in between the tackles running back. And I keep talking about it with Nick Chubb. I do not think he's going to be ready to start the season. I don't think we see him before the halfway point of the season. And whenever he does come back, he's going to be eased in, and he's probably not going to be the same guy. Look, I know a lot of people are pointing to Breece Hall last year saying, see, Breece Hall did it. No, Breece Hall did not do it. He had over half of his PPR fantasy points in the receiving game. He got lucky that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Yeah, I'm saying it. He got lucky that Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and he had Trevor Siemian and these guys just dumping it off to him 10 plus times a game. Even Nick Chubb, even a healthy Nick Chubb, isn't going to come anywhere close to catching as many passes as Breece Hall got last year. And Nick Chubb's knee injury is 10 times worse than what Breece Hall had. I mean, I just made that up. I don't know if that's medically accurate, but it's significantly worse than Breece Hall's injury last year. So I think Jerome Ford is going to be the guy to start week 1. And look, if Nick Chubb has any kind of setback, or if he's not ready, or if the Browns just feel like they don't want to risk it with Nick Chubb and bring him back too soon, we could see him be the workhorse running back for the Cleveland Browns all season long. And again, you're getting him outside pick 130, a lot of times not even being drafted in leagues. So I think Jerome Ford right now, insanely underrated.
Agree. That's a guy I'm taking a ton of late in my underdog drafts. Look, let's stay in the same division. I'm also taking a lot of swings on Chase Brown in Cincinnati because this is definitely going to be a 1-2 punch. Who's the one? Who's the two? I don't think it matters. It's going to be Zach Moss and Chase Brown both getting opportunities. Who do I prefer? The more explosive back, the one who's not only been there and more familiar with the system, the offense, but actually can break away and make some big plays. And in fact, that is what Chase Brown does. Very fast runner, but look, last year, limited time, of course, but if you talk about explosive run rate, those runs of 15 yards or more, he was fourth highest at 9.1%. Only Devon Achane, Keaton Mitchell, and somehow Michael Carter, Michael Carter from the Jets and the Cardinals, don't ask how, those are the only guys who had a higher explosive run rate than Chase Brown. And Brown didn't really get that many touches because Joe Mixon was still there. Mixon is gone. Zach Moss will mix in, but Brown is definitely going to see an uptick in touches. He has that big playmaking ability. I think that he'll also be involved as a pass catcher. So, I'll take a guy who's on an elite offense like this. If everybody actually stays healthy at the same time in Cincinnati, this could be potentially the best offense in the league. We'll see. But I'd rather have a guy who has that big playability, who is on an elite offense, and I will take a chance on him even if he isn't the starter. Because, look, let's face it, there's only so many workhorse backs in the league. And after that, you want the guys who have the upside. And Brown is definitely one of them. Those are some of the best running backs you can take late, but these are some of those worst picks you can make early. Do not ruin your draft.